how do we balance caring about our environment and wanting to have a healthy environment with personal freedom?
But I mean, that's the thing is like, everybody wants clean air, right? That's everyone agrees on. Clean air, clean water. I mean, like I said, I grew up on a farm. Like, clean air, clean water. No pollution. Like that's how we thrived, right? But the biggest thing is like we need to set reasonable policies in place where people can actually still afford to live. And we can move in that direction. And as you look at as energy over time is going to start to increase, and we have renewables and all those things, those are fine. But let's not do it at the expense of people and try to rush markets and use artificial ways to pay for this stuff that are not economical for people, and allow them to actually be able to sustain their lifestyle and live in a way that's, that they can actually, pay their bills, help their family, do the things they want to do. I mean, that's what we need to do, and not allow ourselves to fall in these traps to say we need to do this.
Americans are capable of achieving extraordinary things when they have the freedom and opportunity to do so. This is American Potential. And here's your host, Jeff Crank.
Hi, everyone. My name is David Fromm, and I'm a Regional Vice President for Americans for Prosperity. Jeff Crank has been a little busy, so the podcast asked if I could be the guest host for this episode. Since it's Halloween, or almost Halloween, and people are focused on scary things, the podcast had a great idea to talk about some of the scariest legislation that states either passed or tried to pass last session. Some states looked at restricting workers' rights. Others passed pension reform that will actually hurt teachers. But the scary bill that we are going to talk about today has to deal with carbon emissions. Trying to reduce carbon emissions has been a focus at the federal and the state level. As some states are looking at reducing carbon emissions, it seems that they are focused on hitting a number, that they're not thinking about the impact it will have on different businesses or families. This past session, one state tried to increase penalties and regulations to deal with carbon emissions, and it would have expanded government's already big role in this area. This bill didn't pass, but it could have taken away individuals' freedoms and stifled innovation in the marketplace. So, which state tried to pass this scary bill? It was the state of Colorado. And today's guest is Americans for Prosperity Regional Director and Colorado State Director, Jesse Mallory. Jesse, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, that's great. Hey, before we get started, let's get to know you. I know you maybe have been on before, but let's get to know you a little bit.
Sure. Jesse Mallory. I'm the state director here, now I'm regional. As of almost a year ago. Previous to that, been with Colorado chapter for 7 years, 7 years, somewhere around there. Before that, I was chief of staff down at the Colorado State Capitol for just under 7 years.
Yeah, tell us something fun about yourself.
Something fun about myself? Something mildly interesting. I'm a defense coordinator for Bellevue Christian's football program, so I spend a lot of time on the football field this time of year.
Nice. Well, I'll tell you what, I've been saying this fall season is my season of football. I got two kids, two boys playing football.
There you go.
And tonight I'll go and see the Wheaton Academy Crusaders take on their opponents.
Friday Night Lights. Doesn't get much better.
It's a great way to spend time in the fall. I love it. Well, good for you, man. So, hey, explain what the carbon emission standards are now in the state of Colorado, and what are some of the previous bills that have been passed dealing with carbon emissions?
Sure. So years ago, under the leadership of then Governor John Hickenlooper, Colorado decided, in its infinite wisdom, to tie our ozone standards to the state of California. So as California lurches and lurches and lurches to the left, as does Colorado and a few other states who made that decision as well. So what we've seen over the last several years is that the state's potentially trying to push in these emission standards to make it harder and harder for folks to comply. And we're in a battle with the EPA and a list of other things. But one of the things they're actually trying to do is limit driving, because they think driving is these are the same people who try to ban gas-powered lawnmowers, among other things. So as you're trying to figure out how to pay your bills, as you're looking to see, how am I going to make ends meet? There's somebody in the government of Colorado who's laying awake wondering how much you drive and what your lawnmower is. You just can't make this stuff up.
Well, but unfortunately, it's something that we see, all across the country. And I'm so glad that you guys were able to help work against this and beat it back. But what are some of the practical implications? I know you mentioned some of them, but what are kind of some of the most ridiculous things that this would have resulted in?
Sure. Well, this terrible idea of theirs actually started a couple of years ago when the the Department of Public Health decided they wanted to force employers to force their employees to either take the bus, ride a bike, or carpool to work. And they did it through what they call incentives, which were kind of the opposite of what an incentive actually is. It was a mandate in a lot of ways. And so the department went out, they started to push this stuff, and it was for employers of 100 employees or more. So for instance, my kid's school, which is just 1.7 miles from my house, has 100 employees at least. And it would have required, under that mandate, it would have required me or my wife to take our kids to school using the bus or bike, which you can't really do a bike, especially as Colorado. We have seasons, we have real snow. And so in order for you to take the bus, it would actually export more emissions, but it really made somebody in government feel really good about themselves when it's 7 minutes from door to door. And I mean, that's the implication, is that it actually limited people's freedoms. And while, the blue check marks on Twitter and some other folks came at us really hard when we came out and started opposing this, one of the things we ran into was trying to get people to actually believe what was happening, because people are like, there's no way they would do this. And we say, we will show you the information. Let us get it to you, because this will have real implications on your life.
I know you know this, but my wife and I have a lot of kids. We got 11 kids.
Yeah, you got a couple.
Yeah, we got a few. And but because of that, we drive a 15-passenger van. I mean, there's not much other option. If we want to drive together as a family, there's a big, non-fuel efficient van that we drive.
Yeah.
And I've always found it so curious that when, whether it was the old Obama administration or state governments really try to, push in on telling you what kind of vehicle you can drive, or really restricting that you can even drive. I mean, that's just not practical for my family and so many other families.
Well, and Colorado's a commuter state. That's what people forget, is that, when you do everything in Denver, maybe riding your bike or the bus is really convenient, but there's a whole nother part of the state that doesn't exist in that environment. And unfortunately, the people who are making these policies are the people who live in downtown in their lofts, who have no idea. They've never, they don't know where Julesburg, Colorado is. They, the closest they've been to the Western Slope was probably like Vail or something, they have no idea that there's a whole other Western region there. And what they want to do is they want to create these mandates that say they don't like you to drive. And they've been pretty open about it lately. They passed Senate Bill 21260 for transportation, but they say we don't want to build more roads, because if we build more roads, you will drive, and we don't want people to drive. So now what they're doing is trying to, and they realize they can't say this stuff as standalone anymore. They, like I said, when they tried to do the employee trip reduction plan a few years ago, they were shocked. People were outraged by it. And I was shocked. They were shocked. I just was like, I don't know where you live, where you thought this would be acceptable. And so now what they're doing is they're trying to piece into other bills. So they'll sneak it into another bill, because in Colorado we have single subject in theory, but they blow open a very broad subject and they'll try to slip this stuff in. So we spent a lot of our time going through these carbon emission bills to see where they're trying to put this.
A bunch of years ago, I was in Meeker, Colorado, way up in northwest Colorado. I always joke that the rule there seems like everything has to be decorated in antlers, but also right. But at the same time, the other rule seemed like everybody had to drive a Super Duty, F-Series truck. And that's just what everybody had. But partially because if you're up there, one, you need it. Two, you need to drive around, you need to drive to get to places because stuff's spread out. And I just wonder, are these people even contemplating? Are they ever gone through the intellectual exercise of what do those people do?
Yeah.
People who need a less fuel efficient vehicle because maybe their work or where they live.
Well, but that's a problem, is that when you have people who live in a very small area that, they don't leave downtown, or they don't leave the Denver metro area, they have no idea what the rest of the state's going through. So, and they say, well, this only impacts this one attainment zone. So, all those rural communities will be fine. It's like, yeah, for now, but that's where you want to go next. And when you have no idea what people on the Eastern Plains or Western Slope are going through and the kind of vehicles they need to not only just get around town, but to do their jobs, I understand they're like, oh, there's a new electric Ford truck you could buy. No, thank you. But it's like, that's not going to work on the farm.
Right.
I don't know. I don't understand. But it's one of those things, if you've never been out to a rural community, if you never worked on a farm, I grew up on a farm. It is a tough life, and you can't have electric vehicles. You need a gas powered vehicle to do what you need to do. And unfortunately, the people who make these policies have no concept of that.
So how do you think we can, what lessons can we learn from this? How can we better connect those folks who seem disconnected from the reality of a large portion of, in this case, Colorado's population?
Well, I think one of my favorite things about working at Americans for Prosperity is that we get to bring the people's voices directly to them. And I got to tell you, an elected official has gone through, they've gone door to door, they've gone through town halls. They know how to know how to react to the average person who comes at them more times than not. But I can tell you, governor's appointees, they have no idea. Like these are people who were appointed, and then confirmed in the Senate, which is 35 folks, and you only need 18. But at the end of the day, like they've never really had to interact with these folks. So one of my favorite things to do is to take the voice of the people and bring it to governor's appointees and to their offices, and they don't know how to handle that. And it is one of my absolute things of joy because their offices get overwhelmed because they don't interact with the average person on any given day. So when you bring those voices and elevate them, that's when you have a real impact.
So you're kind of reminding folks working in the government, working for the people, you're just kind of reminding them who they work for.
No, and that's the thing is that too often, I spent 7 years down to Capitol. I was at that point, you're almost a term member of the legislature in Colorado. And I can tell you the number of folks on both sides of the aisle, more on one than the other. It's more on the left than the right, but it's folks who say things like, if everyone would just listen to us and do what we said, things would be so much better. And that is a scary, scary thing because, as you know, capitals are their own little universes where everyone talks to everybody and they'll say, oh, everyone's talking about this bill. It's like, no one's talking about this bill except you guys. No one else cares. And so they live in their own world. And if you don't bring the world to them, they'll just talk to each other. And that's a dangerous place for the average person.
So we've been talking about carbon emissions on the federal level and the state level for a lot of years now, for decades, right? And it just keeps coming. I think there's a control element, in my opinion.
Oh, absolutely.
In a lot of the policy making. But I think like what's often left out is the people most impacted are the people who can least afford to be impacted. I mean, folks.
Oh no, they got a solution for that. It's to say, we're going to give you a rebate. So it's like I've had this lawnmower. I don't even know how old this thing is. It's older than my youngest kid at this point. So it's 14 plus years at this point. But it's they keep saying, well, we're going to give rebates. So what they do is they increase the cost of things on you, and then they say, well, we'll give you a little bit back. So they take some of your money and then give you a discount and pat themselves on the back. And when you start pricing out this equipment, it's like, this lawnmower, I left it out for an entire summer on the side of my house. I kept thinking, I'll bring it in. Kick that thing on, it goes, like nothing. And it's like, I don't want to have to go out and spend several $100s replacing it. It works fine. When I kick it on, it's going to go. And trying to force impacted communities, people who are living on the margins, people on fixed incomes who are struggling to get by, especially in this economy with inflation and everything else going on, to go to them and say, hey, you need to go out and you need to get all this brand new lawn equipment. Like, that's not fair to them because they cannot afford it and they just can't.
Well, I think about, the folks who have mom and pop landscaping businesses, for instance. None of those folks are getting rich right off the bat, but they're dependent upon that equipment that they have. So if you all of a sudden said you have to go and replace all your equipment, that's catastrophic to their business.
Oh, it's devastating. It takes out their business. And the thing that they don't think about is they say, oh, well, there's this one guy that, Coperk highlighted that has, solar panels on his truck to charge his equipment. He drives around. And I was like, and how much did that cost?
Right.
Realistically, how much did that cost? I have a neighbor behind me who's got his own landscaping business, and there's this giant trailer with all these lawnmowers and gas cans and all these things. And that's his livelihood. He has a very, very successful landscaping business, and this will put him it'll put him out of business without question. Yeah. Like, he can't afford to take that kind of hit.
Well, even on the personal level, I think about, who are the folks who can least afford, well, let me put it a different way. Who are the folks that buy the cheap old cars?
Yeah.
It's folks who need transportation, but, can't afford an EV or can't afford a more fuel efficient car that's newer. They're not buying older, less fuel efficient cars just because they like it.
Yeah.
Normally, most folks just can't afford it. Or, I live in Illinois, and we have emissions tests, and so you can't. You're not supposed to drive your car if you don't pass emissions.
Yeah.
Well, the problem is that if you don't pass emissions, then you can't drive. If you can't drive, you can't go to work and earn your money, and then you can get into the system in the justice system because you're getting arrested and your license is suspended. But the person who can't fix their car most often is the person who just doesn't have means. And these are the folks that we're, I like to think that we're trying to stand up for and say, like, this is impacting them in a really much more impactful way than it is, the wealthy person living in the suburbs of Chicago or living in the suburbs of Denver. Oh, yeah.
And that's the thing is that people don't think about is that, the person who's got, when you look at the EV ownership, and it's changed, but for several years in Colorado, it was predominantly rich white communities.
Right.
And I know we've offered extensive rebate packages, thanks to the taxpayers funding it. Now to where it's like, anyone can afford one of these. Well, have you ever heard the maintenance on one of those? What the cost of fixing them is? A lot of times people get them, and once their warranties run out, they can't fix the car because they can't afford it. Wow. And that's the thing is like, I live in a very blue collar area. Everybody's driving trucks, SUVs and stuff. Same thing. They're all older, all like very, very few new cars on the street. But it's like, those are the cars that are economical. They get people where they need to go at the price they can afford. And to come in there and artificially inflate to say you can only buy these certain kind of cars will have a devastating impact on a huge portion of the population.
So I know in this podcast we often talk about government overreach.
Slightly.
I think we'd probably agree, at least with one another,
a little bit,
that this is a bad form of government overreach.
Well, it's the idea that the government says that they want to control, what you buy, what you own, when you drive. I mean, that is the definition of control. It's like that's, and that's the thing is that regardless of what party you are, whether you're voting for Harris or Trump or whoever third party that you choose, we should all agree that this is not the proper role of government, and they should not have this kind of control over our lives ever.
I agree. Maybe talk a little bit to, what are the long-term barriers to economic growth and prosperity that policies like this create? I mean, we talked a little bit about like what it means right away. If this came in, it's scary just by being instituted right away if it had passed. But over the long term, what do you think that does to a state like Colorado?
The cost of living in Colorado, I always feel sorry for the people who moved from California and D.C. We've got several from your state who moved here who think they're going to save money. And I'm like, no, you're not. Our cost of living is through the roof. It's astronomical. It's hard to find a house.
Well, at least it looks really nice. It's a beautiful state.
No, it's a beautiful state. It's a beautiful state if you can afford it. And so what happens is people come here, they have no idea what our cost of living is and how expensive things are. And what it does is it starts to, put a lot of pressure on the lower income communities who over time is like they can't afford to pay an extra $1,200 a year. They can't afford to do this stuff. And then you start trickling in these policies to say, well, we changed our emission standards, so now we want your vehicle to do this. And there's some that, and we have the ones on the side of the road you drive by, you just like, you go through emissions without asking. Don't worry, they bill you later. But yeah, it's very nice. Very, very, very kind of them. But it's like, you start to put pressure on those communities to say, you can't, you can only drive if you meet this requirement. You can only have this kind of car if you meet this requirement. And it starts taking people, even middle income folks who used to have more, income that was disposable, starts chipping away at that. And over the long term, we've seen it here in the state where, we talk to people at the doors all the time who say, I've never made this amount of money and I've never been this broke, which is a weird place to be. And it's because there's all these things that they nickel and dime over the course of, 5 to 7 years that start to have a real impact. You start pushing cars out of the market, leaving more expensive ones. You start pushing out used equipment, forcing people to buy brand new ones, and all that. And it just has a ripple effect when businesses have to start raising their prices to pay for these mandates. And people don't understand that it might just be a couple bucks now, but that's going to compound over time and start to increase.
I wonder also in the long term if it just remakes where people live and how communities grow or don't grow, or where jobs go to. Well,
back in I want to say it was like 2015, I think, where it was like 10,000 people were moving here a month. Yeah, we don't have that problem anymore. We priced too many people out.
Well, I think there is, we don't want to give the impression that like we don't care about the environment and
of course not.
Like we don't embrace pollution and all that. But how do we balance caring about our environment and wanting to have a healthy environment with personal freedom?
Yeah. But I mean, that's the thing is like, everybody wants clean air, right? That's everyone agrees on that. Clean air, clean water. I mean, like I said, I grew up on a farm. Like, clean air, clean water. No pollution. Like that's how we thrived, right? But the biggest thing is like we need to set reasonable policies in place to where people can actually still afford to live, and we can move in that direction. And as you look at as energy over time is going to start to increase, and we have renewables and all those things, those are fine, but let's not do it at the expense of people and try to rush markets and use artificial ways to pay for this stuff that are not economical for people, and allow them to actually be able to sustain their lifestyle and live in a way that's, that they can actually, pay their bills, help their family, and do the things they want to do. I mean, that's what we need to do, and not allow ourselves to fall in these traps to say we need to do this at all costs or else, because that's when you start getting in policies that start pushing people into financial ruin. You start pushing into government control, and that's a very dangerous path.
Yeah, we see it over and over again, right? In no matter what the policy area. Unfortunately, I think some of our opponents on these issues like to say, well, just because you're embracing personal freedom, you just don't care about these other negative things.
Yeah, that's not true.
And it's really a red herring. It's kind of it short circuits a thoughtful argument that we can have, or discussion that we can have. And unfortunately, I don't know that our political climate really allows for that thoughtful discussion very often at the national or state level. Yeah,
unfortunately, it's everybody's trying to get famous on social media with the best soundbite. And the thing is, if people realize it's not either ors. It's not your choices are either clean air or absolute pollution. It's like, no, like the market itself dictates. I mean, people want to live in clean areas. They do support policies that allow for that, but it's one of those things too that there's also environmental impacts that people don't take into account. Like we have natural carbon and things that are happening around the state, and those attainment areas that are like Rocky Mountain National Park pushes up some of this stuff. Like being in compliance due to a national park is a bit of a struggle, because it'll emit some of those things that do have an impact on the EPA regulations. So those are all the things that we have to take into account. It's complicated, and unfortunately, as there's folks on both sides who just want to paint, if you oppose them, that you're outrageous, and you got those who are like, oh, they just want to shut down the economy and destroy everything, and you got the folks on the other side who say things like, oh, they just want to protect the polluters. It's like, well, majority of society lives in the middle. They say, we can have both, actually. So let's have an adult conversation about it.
Yeah, you might want to allow people to mow their lawn and drive to work, drive their kids to school, rather than having to find other alternatives.
Yeah, and just the emission standards in Colorado alone has created some, we have cleaner air than we've had in a very long time, and everybody's very happy with that. But it's like we don't have to shut down the economy and cripple people's ability to go to work and move around in order to achieve this. Like there's another way to do it.
I seem to remember, as state director, you did something involving livestock that I thought was really pretty. I don't. Was it related to this piece of legislation? Or was it a similar one?
It was a general concept. So there was a legislator in Colorado who, again, was really concerned about what the state of my lawnmower, and try to outlaw them, which, and this bill did a lot of other things too. But I can tell you, legislators don't mind being yelled at. They don't mind being accused of things, but they don't like to be laughed at. So. Consulting with Mr. Bentley, who was my regional at the time, I was talking to him about this, and I was like, we're trying to find a way to highlight, like they want to get rid of gas-powered lawnmowers, which is just weird. It's just a weird thing to do. And so we talked. It was actually Ben's idea, where he was like, you should get some goats. You know anybody who has goats? And I was like, I actually know somebody who's got like a goat farm. So one day, it was like $40 for parking for them, and about an hour and a half of my time combined. We just brought these baby goats outside the Capitol, had them running around up and down the steps, just doing cute things baby goats do. Nobody bothered to ask why I was there, what I was doing. Capitol security came out to pet the goats. I'm sure somebody got talked to after that. But so we just filmed it. We're saying, this is what they're trying to do. Imagine how you're going to have to deal with your lawn later. And in the House Democrat supermajority, they had, I don't know, like 2 or 3 caucus meetings about it. People were pulling their names off the bill because it was just deemed the GOAT bill. I called it the GOAT Employment Act. I mean, we're not
talking about the greatest of all time bill.
Yeah, no. Yeah, just to be clear. And so and honestly, I posted the video. I just did this silly voiceover, dropped it online, went about my business. Next thing I know, this thing's got a ton of views. People are talking about it. I'm getting texts from lobbyists at the Capitol. The bill sponsor can't even say my name in front of. They're still upset with me. And it was one of those things that they ended up having to kill the bill because everybody was laughing at it and saying, this is so outrageous. Like radio talk shows picked it up. The news started picking it up. Once people start talking about it, once you take an idea like that and you put it in the light of the ridiculous approach to some of these policies, then people absolutely opposed it. And I mean, same thing with the person who wanted to register pets, even your goldfish. They want to know, no, dead serious. They came out and they said, what if you die? Who's going to take care of the goldfish? I'm like, you know what? Keep them, flush them. I'm really not worried about it. In the event of my untimely demise, like, I'm not really going to lay awake and I think, who's going to feed my goldfish? Like, no, do what you want with it. So.
Wow. I mean, I do think it's a great idea. It's a great tactic to sometimes laugh at some of the ridiculous things that are out there. I appreciate that, as with Americans for Prosperity, you're raising people's voices and goats' voices at times.
Yeah,
so,
don't want to leave anybody out. And that's the important thing is I think people have to understand that there's so much, there's like 600 bills at the Capitol any given year, and there's a handful of them that would really have a detrimental impact to your life. And what I see is us as a partner to raise those up and make people aware of them, because people don't realize the average person isn't engaged in this because they don't care. It's overwhelming to them. They don't even know where to start. They're not sure who to reach out to. So what I see is us to be a partner in that, to say, here's the issue, here's a solution, and here's the way you can take action right now in this moment. And that's when change happens.
Yeah. Amen, man. It is, it's important work, and, we need people to kind of be involved.
Absolutely.
One final thing, with Halloween coming up, are you going to suggest to any of your kids or others that they dress up like a carbon emissions bill? Would that be a good bill? I mean, might be a little odd.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But might be a little scary to some folks. And, I think, my approach on Halloween is to, my kids are all old. They don't like to trick or treat anymore. So I pretty much sit inside, hand out candy. I got it easy now.
Nice. Nice. I still have a lot of young kids. I make them dress up like other scary things, like tax increases.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Overregulation.
Yeah,
It's very odd. A lot of paper involved. People never know what they are, but
it's a great conversation starter.
Well, all right. Well, Jesse Mallory with Americans for Prosperity. Thanks so much for being here, for having us here in Colorado. And thanks for fighting this.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think the moral of the story is, like, people need to get involved. And I think that's the thing that we need people to do, is to get involved. I mean, liberty and freedom are easily taken for granted, but don't take it for granted. Go out there and defend freedom and liberty by getting involved. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for listening to American Potential. You may listen to more stories from Americans working every day to expand freedom and opportunity in their communities by visiting AmericanPotential.com.